the show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Pleased to have you joining us. We're back after a couple weeks off. Hope you enjoyed our repeats of the Murray twins a couple of weeks ago and then Gary Dolphin last week, Hawkeye legendary broadcaster. We're back. I know a lot of you Hawkeye fans are down this week, but don't be down. Iowa Hawkeye men's team had a great season in total. The women had a great season. Bluder's bunch, yes, it ended earlier than we want both seasons. The Hawkeye men still finished third. NCAA wrestling, it wasn't last year's national championship. Still had 5 of their 10 wrestlers finish at All-American status. So Craig and Stacy Schroeder, a lot going on with Fight with Flash Foundation via Facebook or fightwithflash.org. How are you two doing after a couple weeks off?
Doing awesome.
Doing great. Yeah, refreshed.
You went somewhere where there was sun. I did not, obviously. So, hey, I got to tell you both, it's just the work you two do never stops. And Stacy, you're going to talk a little bit about what's upcoming, and then Craig and we're going to take a little departure from just, Craig, I thought you said it so well, as did you, Stacy. It's not just cancer research, and it's a big part of what you do at Fight with Flash, but there are so many other elements to mental health, to spreading your message. It goes across the board. And Craig, you're going to tell us a very personal story with this in the North Liberty School community with your daughter, Haley, as well. So, Stacy, let's start with you first. And again, as always, thank you both for joining us. So, what you got going on your plate? I know you two can never say nothing. So I'm going to leave it to you and say, talk about an event you got coming up, please.
Okay, yes. So April 1st, Craig and I will be speaking at a Good Grief conference put on by the No Foot Too Small. And what we'll be doing is basically just talking about grief in how we've gotten through things. It's basically winning the day after a loss with
very well
faith
done.
And love, and just trying to share how we've gotten through everything through the last few years and staying together.
And very admirably. So. And you know, it's awesome when you say good grief, because we all think of the Charlie Brown good grief. And so it's a nice spin on that. But Craig, and thank you for that, Stacy. But Craig, serious note with Owen Skelly and OS, hashtag OS 14, kind of like a Fight with Flash 22. That was Owen's number. And he took his own life, sadly, and was very close to your community in North Liberty and your daughter, Haley. Please talk about that.
Absolutely. It was a shock to everybody. Owen is such an amazing young man. Someone that was always worried about somebody else. I mean, Stacy and I, one of the most things that we're going to miss about Owen is our weekly snaps that we would get from him. Yeah. And he was just that kid that would always checking in on everybody else, asking them if they're okay, what do they need, hope they're doing well. Even had a conversation, his dad told us at the service to everybody that, hey, Dad, if you ever want to talk, just come to me, I'm here. Wow. And the dad, Joe and Jennifer, so they're awesome people. And they'd be like, well, yeah, bud, but you can come to me if you need to talk about anything. And it's just something that, mental health is so important, and it, unfortunately kind of just gets pushed under the rug until something like this happens, and it's a tragedy, and it's not the right choice, and we all go through things, and we all need to understand that there are people out there that can help, and we need to be able to voice that and ask for help.
And I think you and Stacy, the admirable work you do, and so not just counseling his parents, because you went through a different type of death, but a death nonetheless of a child, and you did that with Brad and Darcy Schaefer, with Tater Tuff and Tate Schaefer, and the work never ends for you two, and it's just, I can't thank you both enough, and Craig and Stacy shining a light on mental health now too, and what all of us have to go through with grief. So kudos to both of you two, and the fantastic work you do. And you talk about selfless right here, Craig and Stacy Schroeder, Fight with Flash Foundation via Facebook or fightwithflash.org. Thank you both so much, and for shining a light on something, yet another thing we need to pay attention to is everybody's mental health. Check on your loved ones, as Craig and Stacy have said regularly, please, even if you don't, continue, or if you do, continue to, and if you don't, please do. But thank you both so much.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Truly my pleasure. For Craig and Stacy Schroeder, again, Fight with Flash Foundation via Facebook or fightwithflash.org. I'm Dave O'Hara, back with more Hawkeye with Jeff Horner, former Hawkeye great, in just a few moments.
To make the Mershman Seeds delivery experience even better this year, Mershman Seeds is offering you a brand new Apple app called Mershman Delivers. It will give you the estimated time of delivery down to the second and updates you as our truck makes its way to your dealership. Mershman Delivers will provide you the answer to the #1 question we get when it comes to delivery. When exactly will the Mershman truck be here? Available on the Apple App Store. Download Mershman Delivers today.
Joel from Tice Chevrolet. We've lived through some very interesting times the last few months. Ensuring everyone's safety is more important than ever. That is why we're participating in the Chevy Clean program. At your request, we will pick up your vehicle, service it, and return it after we've cleaned it using the current CDC guidelines. This is just another way to work towards exceeding your expectations. So give us a call and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Welcome to Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara, and Jeff Horner joining us. As you can see, longtime legendary former Hawkeye at or near the top of all meaningful offensive statistical categories in Iowa men's basketball history. Jeff now completed year 4 as Truman State University's head coach. So Jeff, as always, thanks for joining us. We got a little extra time with you today I want to spend with you in reference to a season recap on the Iowa Hawkeye men's and even the women's Blueters bunch for that matter, but also what's happening with you at Truman State. Another successful run into the NCAA tournament that ended shorter. It was shorter than you'd like, obviously, but first and foremost, as always, it's been a while, so thanks for joining us. And how you doing, my friend?
Thanks for having me. Doing good. Can't complain.
Well, and if you did, like I always said, if you did, who would listen? Or I would listen, Jeff. Hey, got a couple of quick things off the top right away for you. You take a look at what happened with Iowa, and as you and I were texting last week to coordinate this interview, we've had a few weeks off here at Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara, and we've had replays of the Murray twins interviews I've done in the past, and also with Gary Dolphin, legendary broadcaster. And I thought to myself, who better than Jeff Horner to step in the shoes of Keegan Murray? Win 4 games in a row in 2006 in the Big Ten tournament. You were the MVP, Keegan Murray. They win 4 games in a row, win the Big Ten tournament in 2022, MVP. Now, Hawkeye fans and Jeff, I apologize already in advance. Your team was a 3 seed, lost to a 14 seed in Northwestern State in 06. First round, unexpected bouncing. Same thing happened with Keegan and his guys, except number 12, Richmond, upsets the 5 Iowa Hawkeyes. So I am going to step out of the way and let you kind of fill in all those blanks of the highs of a Big Ten tournament title and an MVP award for you and Keegan. But then also, man, within a week, it's all gone, 5 days. So talk about that for us, if you would, please. For
sure. Well, first off, I think in my personal opinion, I think the Big Ten needs to change when they finish the Big Ten tournament. I think that would be a good idea, even if it ends on Saturday, or if they did it a couple of days before, that type of thing. But obviously, there's so many teams in the Big Ten. I understand why they do it, the reason they do it, but then also you kind of just feel for teams who then, if you win the Big Ten tournament, you got to sit there and watch the selection show in some room instead of being back home, being able to enjoy it, that type of thing. Not saying you don't enjoy it in a room, but it's one of those things where I think a lot of teams would just appreciate if the tournament ended a little bit sooner instead of being the last tournament to end, and then all of a sudden bam, now I'm turning around, I'm heading to Buffalo, New York to play, and who knows if they might have went home for one day and then got right back on a plane, and it feels like you've been on the road for a week and a half, that type of thing, and so in my opinion, I'm not trying to sit here and make excuses or anything like that, but a Big Ten tournament is obviously extremely important. But I think that more people, you get to the NCAA tournament, that's the end goal. You've kind of reached that point to where, all right, now it's time to kind of do something, and then you get there, and it's March Madness is all about upsets. People, I find it kind of interesting because people sit there and they say things about conferences this, conferences that. Well, in the end, nobody, a lot of just average fans don't know how good basketball is in some of these, conferences that, like a Richmond is in or a Northwestern State is in. And so they don't know really anything about that. So it ends up being all about matchups. Well, when it ends up being all about matchups, us at Iowa, athletically, Northwestern State could stay with us, that type of thing. And we just weren't, they were more athletic than we were. That's just kind of the name of the game. It was kind of a bad matchup for us, to be honest with you. Not saying that we still shouldn't have won the game, but when it's all said and done, that's why they call it March Madness. That's why they have the madness at the end of it, because things can go crazy. Anybody can beat anybody at that point. And, you know, when you're playing hot at the end of the regular season or at the end of a conference tournament, you know, big things can happen. But, you know, obviously you win a Big Ten tournament championship, and then you're on the highest of the highs, and then you turn around, you get beat, you know, you get upset, and you just kind of feel like you've let everyone down. And so that's kind of the biggest upset. I mean, I still think about it every single day, you know, and you know, it'll probably never go away because, you know, I grew up as a Hawkeye through and through, and would never, you know, think about anything else other than being a Hawkeye. And, you know, I'm just kind of one of those people that I'm a perfectionist. So, you know, you want to win and you want to do great things for other people and yourself. And, you know, it definitely hurts.
Yeah, and see, I can just tell with you by coaching, you're a competitive guy, always have been, always will be. I remember talking to your teammate Greg Bruner last year, and Greg said the same thing. He said, Dave, I think about that game every day. And so I always marvel at fans, and I'm not picking on fans. There are some out there who are better than others, not as good as others. But I will say this, what you just said right there. If you don't think, fans, that this doesn't bother the players, you're not thinking correctly, because here's a guy, Jeff Horner, 16 years removed, still thinks about it. Greg Bruner, just talking to Adam Haluska, was a part of that group, but not in that game, and he said the same thing. He said, you know, Dave, to this day, we all think about that. And like you said, they were a little bit more athletic, but you still should have won the game. Then you hear excuses afterwards, not really from the players per se, but some fans saying, oh, it was a Wilson ball, and it was the ball the Hawks didn't want to use, or officials this and officials that. As you're kind of smirking with me going, okay, we're going to discount that right away because both teams played with the same basketball. Both teams had everything the same. And I agree with you about the travel. It's not an excuse. But, yeah, that was a quick turnaround because, yeah, the Hawks got back. And next thing you know, they're on a plane on Tuesday after Sunday's big victory in Indiana and come back on Tuesday. Boom, off to Buffalo you go. Shuffle off to Buffalo. So when you take a look at what you just said about conferences now, and the Big Ten had 2 of their 9 advanced to the Sweet 16 with Michigan, obviously, and Purdue. And you take a look at teams being ready. That's Michigan 5 years in a row. They've gone in 5 years only. It's just been them and Gonzaga in the last 5 years to make it to the Sweet 16 in all 5 years. And Purdue has made it 4 of those 5 years with Matt Painter. So I'm just curious, sometimes, as you mentioned, certain teams, I know we change players out every year, and you and I are going to discuss the transfer portal here in just a few moments, but all that being said, Jeff, personnel changing, your team adjusts well. You and your team at Truman State going into nationals again this year. Didn't advance to the Elite Eight like you did last year. But it's intriguing to me, Jeff, to see a lot of the usual suspects, especially in the Big Ten with Michigan and Purdue. Your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, you got to look at it this way, too. A lot of people didn't think Michigan should even get in, and now they're going to the Sweet 16. So, you know, all that kind of stuff of, you know, where you do this, you do that, you worry about this, you worry about that. You know, when it's all said and done, it also takes a little bit of luck in these types of things. And, you know, Michigan and Purdue, like you said, the usual suspects, I think are, you know, you see those programs in the Big Ten, and they, you know, like you said, they do it quite a few years. And you also look at, you know, neither one of those 2 teams was in the Big Ten, you know, neither one of those, you know, teams at the beginning of the year, you know, they were both ranked pretty highly. So, you know, anything can happen. I mean, that's the thing, right? Maybe you're not playing your best basketball, or, you know, Purdue gets beaten in the Big Ten tournament championship, but, you know, sometimes to take a loss is beneficial, you know, especially if you're on a winning streak, that type of thing, because, you know, you start to worry about things, and now you can kind of just get back to playing. So, you know, it's interesting to see. Like I said, it's all about matchups, and sometimes, you know, some teams match up better against Big Ten teams than Big 12 teams and all that kind of stuff. But when it's all said and done, you know, Big 12 and Big 10, you know, those are 2 of the best conferences in the country.
Yeah, exactly. And before we get to Bluter's Bunch, and I'll mention briefly with the wrestlers, Tom Brands and his crew, everybody wants to be down around Iowa City, Jeff. It's like been a pretty magical winter season after a Hawkeye football team that won the Big Ten West title and lost a tough one in the Big Ten championship against Michigan, and then lost a tough bowl game to a former Hawkeye and Mark Stoops at Kentucky. That was a close, well-played game. Then you go to women's basketball, and what a banner season it was for Caitlin Clark and Bluter's Bunch and Monica Sonano, and you start mentioning names. I don't want to leave anybody off. And they've got everybody coming back next year. Wrestling, of course, will have Spencer Lee back this year. He didn't wrestle this year. And they had 5 out of the 10 make All-Americans. And unfortunately, Warner lost in the championship match. Hawks still finished third. It wasn't last year's national championship with the Brands boys coaching, but at least it was a third-place finish. And you mentioned Big Ten again. Penn State, Michigan, and Iowa, and, Ohio, and Arizona State a distant fourth. So successful seasons there. Back to the Hawkeye men's team, Jeff. Foregone conclusion, Keegan gone, or are there merits to him coming back? Does Chris come back? As you're smiling there, it's asking $1 million question here. A lot of variables, although Peyton Sanford will be back, and what a freshman year it was for him. Again, you start mentioning names. I don't want to leave anybody off. Obviously, J-Bo. I think it's official now, Jeff. J-Bo is done, right?
Well, he's turning 30 next week, so we gotta
be like Jason from the Friday the 13th. Yeah, it'd be like Jason from Friday the 13th or Halloween movie series. It never goes away. But so your thoughts on Keegan and next year for the Hawks? Will they look at transfer portal? And then I want to dovetail it into your team with the transfer. A lot of fans aren't up to that until it actually happens. They're like, oh yeah, transfer portal. So what is what looks like next year for the Hawks, and what's Fran going to look to the portal, transfer portal, or what are your thoughts on Keegan and some of those ideas?
Yeah, I mean, in my honest opinion, I probably would say that Keegan is gone. And that's I mean, people cannot get mad at that. I know some people think maybe, he didn't play his best game in the NCAA tournament, that type of thing. And that's going to somehow, drop his stock or whatever. That's not going to do anything to deter a team from taking him. He's going to go in, he's going to probably do a ton of workouts. People are going to see how well he shoots the ball, see how athletic he is, and probably fall in love with him all over again. And he's the type of guy that could, in my opinion, when he gets to these workouts, that type of thing, he can move up even further than where he's at now. So those things are kind of crapshoots, but he does so many things well that it's going to be hard for teams to pass up on him. And I think it's going to be too hard for him to pass up on a chance like that. As far as Chris goes, I mean, he would be dumb not to test the waters. When you have a twin, everyone thinks, well, maybe he could be that guy,
Right.
Obviously. And so I think that's one of those things where, Chris should probably go in, get feedback and see where he comes out at. And, if I'm an NBA team, if I'm an NBA team, I'm thinking, well, Keegan took a big jump from, year 1 to year 2. And now Chris, played, probably similar minutes to what Keegan did, his first year. And now next year, well, is he going to take that big jump? And, if I was somebody maybe late in the first round, I would think about possibly taking him, based on the fact that, well, maybe if he improves like his brother did, we just got a top 5 pick in the late first round. I mean, those are just thinking thoughts, not saying that.
No, I appreciate
people
that.
are doing, but
Yep.
Those are things that I think you think about probably as an NBA executive, that type of thing. And so, I think that probably if, that happens, I would guess that Fran might, go back and look into the portal, but, he's got good players coming into. I'll be interested to see, where Josh Dix ends up with, just his injury, that kind of thing, an awful thing to happen, for such a great young man. It just kind of stinks, but I know he's a hard worker. He'll get back. I know the Bowen kid's a really good player too. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But, the thing is too, Chris could come back and step in there and play Keegan, type minutes next year. And I think that could also be extremely beneficial for him too. So I will be very interested to see what happens. As a coach, you have those, behind the door talks, that type of thing. So only really, them and their families know, kind of what's going on. But, I know they'll be successful no matter what happens. And, as a coach, we've lost some guys, this year, and I'm excited as ever to, get to work and try to find some guys to make our team and keep our team, moving on the way up.
Very well done. And Jeff, you're right. Like with Chris, it could be a Joe Wieskamp thing where now the way the G League is developing with the NBA and all the teams are affiliated now to NBA teams. It's almost like a minor league in baseball. So, like you said, maybe if Chris doesn't go to the NBA right away, it's a two-way contract like a Joe Wieskamp. A lot of variables there. You're exactly right. In the transfer portal, as you mentioned, you had 4 kids move on, and you've been very helpful with them and moving on, and you'll find other kids and continue with the Iowa South tradition. Jeff, your roster is a lot of your 12 to 14 guys usually have 8 to 10 Iowa guys on there. And again, congratulations on a 4th successful season at Truman State. You just wrapped up in a first-round loss in the NCAA Tournament, but you made it again after last year's Elite 8 run and lost a heartbreaker there. So continued success to you, and anxious to catch up with you like we did last summer leading into the school year next year to see where you're at from here. But thank you for your contributions to this show all throughout the last year. I know it's been tough with your travel schedule. For radio and TV, you joining me all the time. He is former Hawkeye great Jeff Horner, still at or near the top of most meaningful offensive statistical categories in University of Iowa men's basketball history. Jeff, my friend, thanks so much as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, Dave. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. For Jeff Horner, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more to close out the show with Hawkeye Insider Sean Bock. Back with more Hawkeye in a few moments.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Automotive Family. We're living through some of the most interesting and challenging times many of us have ever seen. Knowing who you can rely on is more important than ever. Many of us turn to our families to get us through, and the same holds true here. From our fair upfront pricing to exceptional service after the sale, we truly want to exceed your expectations. So give us a call or stop by and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology or a seed company that's writing the book on it? Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Mershman Seeds has been treating soybeans for decades, long before it was commonplace. We're the leader in technology, introducing Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, with an added fungicide to help produce a faster, more even emergence every single time. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. You can see our buddy, the Hawkeye Insider, Sean Bock. Sean, thanks for joining us as always. How's everything going with you?
Great, Dave. Yeah, thank you for having me.
My pleasure as always. Got to get to it right away because I'll tell you what, there's so much going on. Everybody thinks it's Bluter's Bunch or Hawkeye men's basketball or Hawkeye wrestling. We've covered that already in this show. We got football to talk about. Iowa had their pro day yesterday. Guys, Dane Belton and crew, Tyler Linderbaum worked out for the Scouts. Today we're recording this on Tuesday, March 22nd, so spring football starts tomorrow, the 23rd. By the time you see this on Friday and over the weekend, viewers, Kirk Ferentz is having a press conference tomorrow. A lot going on, Sean, but you wrote a great column on some takeaways going into spring football. I'm going to step out of the way and let you take it over.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of intrigue going into the spring. Obviously, the quarterback situation is going to be one that's talked about a lot. Spencer Petras was a starter for most of last year, went down with an injury. Alex Padilla came in. Played well, I thought, a couple of games, really managed the game well, then went out in the Nebraska game, which, I think some people were a little in disagreement with the short leash, and, Petras took it the rest of the way, and obviously the last 2 games of the season, Big Ten Championship and Citrus Bowl, didn't go too well, but, yeah, I mean, the quarterback situation, especially now with Ken O'Keefe, longtime quarterback coach for Iowa, stepping down, retiring. I think he's going to work in some capacity. Not 100% sure on that yet, but with Brian Ferentz moving to quarterbacks coach and working as the offensive coordinator, it's going to be something to watch.
James Vandenberg a couple weeks ago got to jump in. Former Hawkeye quarterback said, I don't know why that's a problem. All my playing career and guys before me, we had just one OC and one quarterback coach combined. So like you said, it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, so I mean, I think if I had to predict today, I think Petras will be the guy, but Padilla's came back for a reason. Joey Labus might be a year away, but I think those are guys that can really, a lot of intrigue with that room for sure.
I'm glad you mentioned Joey Labus because that was being thrown about towards the end of last year. It's like, wow. I always thought the most popular guy in the town was always the backup quarterback. Now it's the backup quarterback shot. Go ahead, please, continue.
Yeah, no, he's definitely has a lot of intrigue. I know I've said that word a lot, but I mean, that's a spring ball word for you. Yeah. There's a lot of intrigue, a lot of interesting storylines to follow, especially Labus. Like I said before, I think he's a year away, but he's a guy that the Iowa staff is really high on and has been really impressed with what he can do.
What other tidbits going into spring football that you wrote about in your column that we should look for?
Yeah, obviously the running back situation. That one's going to be interesting with no longer Tyler Goodson, the ex-receiver spot, which is where Tyrone Tracy was going to play last year, but really didn't work out that way. The offensive line rotation, one of the big talking points is Logan Jones moving to center. You know, much like Tyler Linderbaum, 4-star in-state guy, All-American Bowl player. You know, started out as a defensive tackle, moved to the offensive line. Now working at center. That's gonna be one of the things to watch as well. Defensive line, obviously some movement there. Who's gonna take over at the free safety spot with Jack Kerner, the cash with Dane Belton, and then obviously you got the second cornerback spot too, with Matt Hankins leaving, Riley Moss coming back, and now that seems to be up for Jamari Harris and Terry Roberts to really, you know, man that down. So, you know, there really seems to be just a lot of interesting, you know, I think it's with Iowa, you know what you're going to get with these guys. You know guys are going to be able to step up, but it's a matter of who, and, you know, how much of a drop-up is there going to be from last year.
Intrigue, I'll say it for you again. Check it out. You see it at the bottom of the screen, HawkeyeInsider.com, or Sean on Twitter. He and our buddy David Eicholt, who's here regularly, Sean and David back and forth here. That's all your recruiting too. There's intrigue in that. We don't have time to get to that today, but a lot of recruiting. Yeah. Iowa was big on a former Hawkeye tight end, or his dad was a tight end here, Mark Way. He's now going to go to LSU, surprise the Hawkeye staff. A lot going on, Sean. Intrigue is the word. Thanks so much, my friend.
Yeah, thank you, Dave, for having me.
You're very welcome. We'll catch up with Sean later, as we know. So thanks to Sean Bock, Jeff Horner, and Craig and Stacy Schroeder and Fight with Flash, and to you, the viewers, for tuning in, as always. So for Hawkeye and me, Dave O'Hara, that's all from me. Thanks to all of you. And as always, thanks for staying tuned at the end of the program for these rolling credits to give our advertisers and sponsors the attention and credit they so richly deserve. And as always, to our aforementioned guests and to you, the viewers. That's all from us at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.